It's Erin Anderson with the Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching. I am super excited that you have tuned in today. Let's get talking about how to heal from betrayal trauma. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. Guys, I'm so excited for today's episode and today's podcast guest. I have been working a little bit with Tera Brown for probably a couple of years now, and I really got the opportunity to connect with her through the Rejuvenate You program. Tera Brown is a betrayal trauma coach, or basically just a trauma coach, because that is what we are, right?
Right.
But she's APSATS trained. She's the certification director through Shaley Hope. And she's just freaking awesome. She knows so much. She's just amazing. And I absolutely have loved chatting with her and getting to know her and, sharing in her wisdom and her goodness. And so I'm just excited to share Tera with you guys today, my audience, because I think you're going to love her just as much as me.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about this too, and especially this topic because, this is one that I've been diving more into lately, healing the nervous system, because this is such a big thing when it comes to healing trauma, right? It totally is. And I've come across clients multiple times where I can do all the mindset work I can with them, but it's not sticking because their nervous system is not on board. You know what I mean?
I do.
And yeah, and it's like really a major thing that we need to address in healing any type of trauma. And so I really felt like this is definitely something we need to put on the podcast.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah,
I love to talk about how we have these 4 areas of our life. So I equate them to building a chair. A really strong chair has 4 strong legs, right? So we have our physical, which includes getting enough sleep and which is hard when you're in trauma.
it
And
is.
eating the right things and drinking water, just plain, easy stuff, but it's our physical needs, right? Then we have our emotional, we have those emotions that we need to get, our mental and our spiritual. And
Yes.
and so our nervous system is included in a lot of that place, but if we over focus, I like to say that, and it sounds judgmental, but if we over focus on one leg, if we just go to God and take everything to God and ignore the rest, we end up with a really strong leg, one really strong leg on our
Hmm.
chair. So we have a
Hmm.
fence post, right? 6 by 6, wooden block underneath our chair. And then the other 3 are like dry spaghetti noodles. And because they're just ignored. And so we still don't feel balanced. And we think, I'm doing everything I know how to do. But we're not doing everything there could be. Right.
Oh, so, and Tara and I were just chatting a little bit about like these certifications and things like that. And now I'm like, I need to go get all these certifications to my business, right? But that is actually one of the things that God taught me. Another one of the very first lessons he taught me was about those 4 main energies that you have: your mental, your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual. And it's really interesting because it does seem like, when you get into that spiritual work, your mental and your emotional do come up quite a bit too. Like if you're actually getting in and doing the actual spiritual work. But I noticed that my physical still was lacking, and it still is to some point,
Mhm.
right? Still working on that one. But you're absolutely right, because it takes all 4 of those pieces to
Well,
actually heal
yeah, we
trauma.
have to heal on all 4 of those levels in order to like release and feel healed and feel balanced. We have
Yeah.
to get each one of those. It's
Yes.
it's not a nice thing, it's actually a need.
Yes. It is. It's a necessity.
Yeah.
And people, I'm not gonna name names, but I had a coach one time that told me um to not worry so much about like the physical, or not worry so much about like the mental, or not worry so much about, and that you need to put all your focus on this, or all your focus on this, or all your focus on this, and not worry about balance.
Mm.
Balance is not a thing. Like, you're never really going to feel balanced and stuff. And I was sitting there like, huh,
Yeah,
right? Like
I would
that.
disagree.
I
Respect.
would disagree. I would, yeah. And obviously, like when that particular coach was saying those things, I was sitting there like, well, that's an interesting theory, but like to me,
It
that
makes me
holds
curious
like,
if there was one of the areas that might have been lacking for her too.
um, yes.
And I
You know,
like we all learn on our own level, on our own pace.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And there's also other things that disrupt it, like thinking that you know everything. And that's one of the things that she kind of does
Mm.
tend to struggle with, right? And that's, one of those mental and emotional low points. That's that noodle part of that chair, right? And so like when we get, and it's kind of like no wonder why we don't feel balanced, or why she would say something like that, as I've kind of researched that and pondered that,
Mm.
like why she would say something like that. But it's for that very thing. It's because she really does still have those noodles, and it's just like, this is why it's so important for us to consider like each one of those four areas.
And I think that goes to like you can hear all these experts and you can take all the trainings and you can do all the things, but
Right.
you have to come back to what works for you and um what your spirit's telling you that you need at the time, like just
Yeah.
what's best for you. Where do you need to go next?
Yeah, exactly. Because, this is, and we were chatting a little bit about this before too, is like, this is God-centered work.
Right.
There's a lot of programs out there that will tell you, to hate the other sex, that women can't be trusted, men can't be trusted. Let's just hate on them all,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
But that is like creating so much more trauma.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like it breaks my heart to see that kind of stuff. But I also see like where there's like blame of the person that's being hurt, like, well, you didn't give him enough sex, or you need to stay longer, this is somehow your fault. And it's like, holy cow, like, come on, like,
Do a
let's
lot of
get with, yeah, let's get with the actual truth here. Because I watch the people in that are being like coached, or in therapy with people that have those beliefs,
Mhm.
and it's like they're still so stuck, and it's no wonder, because both of those are still trauma inducing
Right.
approaches.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I try with everything I do to be trauma informed. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and it's so important to be. And then I love also in a gospel centered way, or at least consider like your highest form of love,
Mhm.
right?
I like that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of like your higher power, I love the idea of like your highest form of love,
Yeah.
because love is power.
Mhm.
So, anyway, but I definitely want to chat about this because I feel like it's so important. And I know for a fact I'm going to learn a ton from you. But what is the nervous system, and how is it impacted when there is trauma in our lives?
Okay, so let's back up once and say, first, we're going to talk about trauma for a second and say
Okay.
trauma is not what happens to you, but
Yes.
it is what you do with it. It's how you
Yes.
interpret it. It's the stories you make it mean about you.
Right.
And then we ruminate on those, right? And so um, there's like four really well-known reactions that we have to trauma. We fight, get mad and angry and blame everyone, right? And we just put up our dukes and want to fight our way out of it because that feels powerful to, and so it's maybe something I could do for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
We fight, we run away, we hide, we don't want to talk to, and we shut people out, and I'm never going to talk to you again, right?
Mm-hmm.
um or I want a divorce tomorrow, right? Just because
Yes.
I don't want to hurt anymore, which
Mhm.
doesn't really curb the hurting, actually.
No, matter of fact, it makes things so much worse a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Um, there's freeze, so I can just shut down and not feel anything and just lay in bed and watch TV for 9 months and eat chocolate. And welcome to my life for a minute. Um, I froze. I didn't
So
know
did
what
I. Yeah.
and then there's also my very well-worn path, which is people pleasing.
Mhm.
I'm uncomfortable, so I'm gonna do whatever I think you need so that you'll be comfortable so I can be comfortable,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And your nervous system is involved in all that. So your nervous system, it's this connection. So a lot of people think it's just your brain and all of the little neurons that run through your body, but actually it's this beautiful figure eight. Okay. So it starts in our heart. Our heart is the thing where we feel all that's where the vibration of our emotions emanates from. Our heart is the center of us, right? There
Mhm.
are more neural pathways from our heart to our brain than there are from our brain to the rest of our body. So our heart is the boss of us. It tells
I
our
love
brain what
this.
to do, and then our brain sends signals to all of the organs, all of the fingertips, all of the little toes, everything to tell it what to do. Okay.
Mhm.
To,
I just yes, I'm dying. I have to say
okay.
this because this is so crazy. When you're talking about the figure eight, okay, that's actually a healing number.
Yeah.
That's one of the most healing numbers, and the reason why is because if you think of yourself like skating, it's a very like in a very, very calm, peaceful way. The figure eight is a flow number, calm and peaceful, very calm and peaceful. And so whenever you create that first wave into the eight and then you cross it again, you're actually literally retraining your brain
Yeah.
to have a new experience, to have something different. We're going in a different direction. We're having a different experience. And that's what the 8 actually teaches. And so when you're saying like I'm geeking out over here. I'm like when you're saying that it's a figure 8, I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Like this is so cool."
So
Okay.
it's a figure eight because there's the neural pathways. It's also a figure eight because there are brain cells in your heart. There's
Mhm.
brain cells in your brain and in your gut. So
Mhm.
that's the figure eight. It goes down, then back into your body, and then back up again, and it just loops.
Yes. Well, this is why too, like when you feel that anxiety, that's in your gut, but also when you feel peace, it's also in your gut.
Mhm,
And it's because you literally do. You have a head, heart, and gut
mhm,
reception center,
mhm,
happening.
mhm.
I love this. Oh my gosh. I'm okay. I'm guys, I'm gonna grab some popcorn and just sit here and let her talk. Like, I'm loving this so much.
Okay, so when something big happens and we have this trauma response, our
Mhm.
brain and our body go into activation. Right?
Mhm.
I love to talk about, our adrenals start pumping. Our adrenal glands are there for a reason. They're there to give us more energy to run away from the bear, to lift the car off our child that just got trapped, to get away to get to safety. Okay? It's supposed to do that. But we're the only um species. We're the only people on Earth. We're the only people on Earth. We're the only ones who actually have that thought process, who think about it
Mhm.
and ruminate on it. In the animal kingdom, when they get into high alert, so let's think about a deer is in the middle of this beautiful um, meadow, okay?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, a mountain lion is like, hey, free lunch, right? And it
Right.
comes, it sees, it starts to stalk, and she notices and she takes off and she runs. Now, if she gets away, the deer, she's the she, if she gets away, um, to safety, then did you know that in the animal kingdom, what they do is that when they get away and when they are safe, they use their adrenals to, have that extra energy to run away. When they get safe, they actually shake. They shake it off. They let go of all that cortisol so they get back to neutral and then they can go on with their life.
Wow.
We are the only ones who repeat it and think about it again and go over it and why did that happen and what could I have done differently, and that's what this means about me, and now I'm a stalked person and I'm always on look for the predator, right?
Mm. Yeah.
But in the animal kingdom all they do is just let go of it. Isn't that so like simple and beautiful? Like, could it be that easy? Could it be that easy to find ways to let go of our, of our stress and that cortisol level? Otherwise, we end up highly stressed, full of anxiety, craving sugar and or sleeping too much, like all of those
Right.
trauma responses, right? We live in that forever if we don't choose
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's
You're
just a
you're
spiral.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I gotta tell you, this is really cool stuff too, because you're right too about the animals.
Yeah.
How they shake. If anybody that has raised chickens will know this,
Mhm.
right? I've got 12. Don't ask me how I got that many. It's a story. But I have 12 new baby chicks. It went from 6 to 12. There's a story. Anyway, but so now, when you know how chicks are when you reach in, they're like freaking out and scattering and peeping and it's a hand,
That's it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the minute you pick up one of those chicks and you put it in your hand, they shake, they shake, they shake, they shake, and then all of a sudden they just relax.
Yeah.
You know? And you're right, it's because they don't have that ability to ruminate.
Mhm.
But we do, and because of that, it definitely creates one heck of a trauma response,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And I've seen like in my own life, we don't like I didn't shake it off,
Mhm.
right? I held on to these traumas for 25, almost 30 years,
Mm.
before I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. I'd
Yeah.
had enough. And
Yeah.
my poor brain and my adrenals were
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, that's one of the reasons too why, our physical body has a harder time coming up from the trauma, is because when you've been in trauma for so long, your adrenals are shot, your gut is shot. Like it does make such a difference on your physical. And so it's really your physical body needs a lot of support when it comes to actually healing trauma,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
it's not just about your stories and your mental, it's about all of the things, right?
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So there's lots of ways to do that to settle. That trauma response is just telling us that our body's on high alert, and it looks like hypervigilance. I'm in detective mode. I'm going to find out what he did. I'm going to find out who he's talking to. I'm going to find out, I'm going to
Mhm.
find evidence of that story I'm telling myself. So we go on the search for it, and we just every time we find a piece of evidence that we think that's what that means, we actually get another hit of dopamine. So it actually helps us prove our story to ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So hypervigilance is a really big way, especially women in trauma. I think men do it too, but for the most part, I work with women, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I have an awesome select few men clients, but for the most part, I work with women, and it's something that I see a lot. So we call it detective mode. And I teach my clients one of the things I love to teach them is let's recognize what that feels like in your body. What does it feel like in your body when you feel hypervigilant, when you want to go looking for all the evidence, when you have this trauma response? And it usually feels like I can only breathe from the chest up. My heart is racing, my thoughts are spinning, I can't catch my breath, right?
Mm.
And I can't even focus on what to do next. And
Mhm.
so I teach them, like, listen to your body. What does it need right now? So I want to give you a good example. I literally had a trauma response this past week. I don't have them very often anymore, but I was in a conversation, totally triggered me, and there's a huge backstory that doesn't matter. What matters is, in the end, what I noticed during this phone call was I actually stopped myself. I stopped talking because I was trying to prove my point. I was trying to think my way out of it and talk my way out of it. And I stopped and I just said, I need to be done with this conversation for now because it's not going anywhere. It's just spinning. Both of us are spinning. And I got off the phone and my husband told me yesterday, he said, yeah, I said to someone, I haven't seen her that mad in years, like decades, maybe. We've been married 30 years. He's like, I don't know if I've ever seen her that upset. But I just closed my eyes and I took a deep breath and I asked myself, what does my body want right now? And I opened my eyes really big and I looked at him and I said, I'm going for a walk. And he said, okay. And it was 10 o'clock at night. And I literally put on my shoes. I couldn't even breathe. I was like, I couldn't even tie them. I was just, my body wanted to move so badly. Well, I took off and I walked down the road. And I remember I put my headphones in. I have a really awesome playlist that I listen to when I'm upset that just helps me to walk it out. It's not a stroll through the forest. It's a
Right.
like get rid
Get
of this in my body.
yes.
So I had this thought cross my head, like if someone came up behind me to attack me while I was on this very dark road in the middle of the night by myself, I could literally turn around and punch them, break their nose, leave them on the ground and walk away and not care because I had that much like
Energy.
energy and emotion going on, and I know
Yeah.
women can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
But I got to where I was going. I walked about a mile in just a few minutes and um I got there, I sat down, I had a conversation with God, a very loud one. And but first I said what I needed to out loud, like what I had been holding and feeling, because that wasn't really appropriate for the conversation that I was having on the phone. And it just I talked to God, I cried. I had moved like my body physically. And afterwards I felt spent. I was very clear on what my part was. I really did a very deep dive into what's my part and how did this happen. So I owned what I needed to. And then I called my husband. I was like, I'm emotionally spent. I need you to come and pick me up. And he was like, okay, great. And I came home. I actually did a little bit of yoga. I turned on some music and I journaled for a minute. And then I was totally at peace and ready to go to bed. And I could have let that anger and that feeling and that emotion and that trauma response last for a month,
Mhm.
but I let go of it in less than an hour with some really great tools.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite things to do is to walk. And especially I think for me cuz I love, my relationship with God. Like that's when I get to talk to him,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I get some amazing
Yeah.
like downloads
Mhm.
and just because your body is moving,
Yeah.
right?
There's that flow again.
It's in that flow again, and especially I think even in the outdoors, like we
Mhm.
have I like walking up this road. It's kind of like there's deer and there you can see foxes and like there's a little stream that runs like right by it. Like it's beautiful. I kind of don't dare do it at night
Yeah,
because
I know. I love to walk down by the river. I walk by the Jordan River, but I would not do that at night.
yeah, right, right. Well, for me, I'm not so worried about people. I'm worried about an actual mountain lion. Like
Uh, well,
that's
there's a
my
lot of
my
people that live down at the river, so that's
yes,
why I
yes,
don't.
yes. I get it. I don't blame you either. But at the same time, like it's such a beautiful somatic work.
Yeah,
Just simply walking.
yeah, yeah.
Walk it off.
Yeah.
Literally, walk it off.
Oh, I love to dance too. And
Me too.
I have so many playlists on my phone, but I just sometimes I turn it on in the shower and just move. Getting your body to move, we don't do that enough. And
Yeah.
so any movement is what helps that. It helps the ideas flow, it helps the stories, it helps me find the story faster when I add that movement piece in.
Yes. Yes, so true. And when I thinking back to like when I was in the deepest, darkest parts of my trauma, I wasn't moving.
Mm.
I was in bed all
I told
day,
you. Yeah.
right? I
Mhm.
was in bed all day, like staring at a screen, trying to just like numb my mind.
Mhm.
And I talk about this quite a bit, like when we're in depression, you know. Depression is actually an absence of all emotion except for one,
Yeah. Well, it's
depression.
suppression. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so, once you actually start getting up and moving, it
Mhm.
actually does tend to help your body and your brain start to release.
Right.
dopamine and
Right.
oxytocin
Right.
and all of these things that we've been wanting to experience more of,
Right.
which is why it does heal the nervous system and we're able to actually start getting out of those responses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of easy ways to just start that parasympathetic. So we have these two systems. The sympathetic nervous system is the one who gives us the energy and moves us, and is the one that's in charge most of the time. Parasympathetic, they like to call it rest and digest. It's
Mhm.
when we come back to our breath. It's when we come
Mm.
to just that stillness, and we need both in our life, right? We need the energy to move and go, and we need to be able to rest. And so I love to just take my right hand and stick it on my heart, right? I like stick it in so it's skin to skin when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I notice that my breath is just really, very shallow. This actually signals your vagus nerve. Your vagus
Oh.
nerve, the biggest nerve, and it when you put your hand right here, it actually is right on top of it. Because your vagus nerve comes down from your brainstem around both sides of your neck, and then what it does is it actually crosses right here at your vocal cords, which is
Yeah, that's
speaking your
interesting.
truth, and singing and humming are such great
Mhm.
ways to get out of that fight or flight.
Mhm.
Um, that's why they say you can always tell a little person is happy when they're singing.
Mhm.
You know? So it crosses here, and then it crosses your body. That's why the right half of your body controls the right half of your brain controls the left of your body, right? So
Mhm.
those signals, they cross right here, but they come right here. So if you stick your hand right here, it signals your body to just take a deeper breath. Just be present. Here you are being present with yourself. And you notice as you do that for a second that you just start to take deeper breaths
Mm.
and you settle yourself down. And this is one way that you can regulate, because trauma dysregulates our nervous system,
Mhm.
puts us in high alert. And so then we feel dysregulated, right? And so
Mhm.
doing things like this to just calm down. I mean, there's all kinds of, you can do tapping, you can even just do bilateral, any kind of back and forth motion, tapping your knees, right? They actually have sensors that, well, someone told me the other day there's an app where you hook it to your phone and then it hooks to your watch, like if you have a smartwatch. So it'll if you hold your phone in one hand and have your watch on the other hand, that it'll just do that bilateral movement for you.
Hmm.
And that helps. I know, isn't that interesting? All
I've
the
never heard of
advancements they
that.
can do.
Wow.
I have seen before people who wear wristbands who that it does that. But um so yeah, so any sort of bilateral stimulation, even when you're having a client and you're talking to them and they can't quite access their feelings, just have them put their hands on their knees and just start tapping back and forth. Not at the same time, just one after another, but
Yeah.
that bilateral stimulation helps regulate.
You know,
Help.
my coach, she's actually been on the podcast a couple of times, Kushla Chadwick. She actually has been trained by uh it's not the person that created EFT, but it was like his own personal student. So he taught like four students and then one of those taught her
Mhm.
how to do EFT.
Mm.
And there are certain like tapping points and
Yeah.
stuff that you can do. You've got like the side of your hand when you're wanting to change a thought or change a feeling or anything like that. And then as you talk it out, there's the inner eye, the outer eye, you've got your cheekbone under your nose, your chin, your heart, and which is really interesting because she was mentioning that you want to keep it open, your hand as you're tapping over your heart, right?
Mhm.
An open heart.
Mhm.
And then you have it under your arm, just kind of right on your rib cage, and then the top of your head, and it just keeps circulating around. But I will tell you, I haven't seen anything work better than that practice. Like, and I do like essential oils, I do meditation. I love walking, I love things like that. But in when we're talking about actually shifting, making big shifts,
Yeah.
I've not seen anything work better, and the reason why is because
No.
it actually incorporates four of the touch points. Well, the four major touch points in creation, which is your mind, your voice, because you're talking it out, right?
Mhm,
your hands, you're using your hands to do all this work, and then your energy,
mhm.
right? It incorporates all four of those creation touch points. And so that's one of the reasons why it works so well.
Yeah. Also because, every one of those spots, there's actually a nerve bundle. So you're actually touching back to your nervous system. And that's why they're such
Ah,
specific points, because there are bundles of nerves in those places where you can, um, access that nervous system again.
wow. That's, see, and I didn't know that. She didn't mention that to me, but how cool is that? Like, I love
Yeah,
this stuff.
yeah.
I do.
Well, here's my other theory, and this is a I don't know. Anyway, I love to say that, we think we can do some of this work in the eternities, or we can muster through here, and then, you know, maybe it'll get better later on, or when we get to heaven or whatever, right? But I'm always like, I think, how do I say this? I think that it's so important that we use our body in some of this healing work. This is our chance with our body. This is our existence with our body. The rest of it, so why not use our body? We're not just going to think new thoughts and have new awarenesses. We're not just going to pray to God. Like I come back to my little PEMS chair, right?
Hmm.
Like we need to involve our physical body in the.
Absolutely. You know, oh, okay. I'm totally going Latter-day Saint on my audience here, guys, because Latter-day Saints are people who love their temples, right? And we do a lot of proxy work in our temples, so that way families can be together. We connect parents to children, and children to parents, and parents to parents, right? Like we connect families together. But one of the things we're also taught is our body is a temple.
Mhm.
And so what are we doing when we're actually doing this type of work? We're not waiting until the other side to connect all of these pieces, right?
Mhm.
No, we're actually, when you heal yourself, you are not, and I can promise and testify to this with 100% accuracy. When you heal your body, when you heal your nervous system, when you heal your trauma, you're not just healing you, you are healing generations.
For sure.
You are. And I've watched this, like, I've talked a little bit about my mom on this podcast, and how, I definitely had a lot of trauma responses with her, growing up.
Mhm.
And, clear into almost my 30s. Now, my relationship with her is better than it's ever been. It's in a way that I never could have possibly imagined.
Mhm.
But it's because I did the inner work, and because I did the inner work, it has affected her.
Right.
It's affected generation after generation after generation, and it's definitely affected my kids.
Right.
you know, Watching them, because nobody's free of trauma. I mean, how long? Like, I've been doing this for 11 years. You've been doing this for 10 years.
Probably.
I'm not free of trauma. You're not free of trauma. Like, we still have traumas that
Right.
come up, you know?
But I have mad skills to work through it when it happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I teach my kids too. It's just amazing, to watch how awesome they are. I love
Yeah.
to watch them interact and work through things and learn new things, and yeah.
Yeah.
My mom, she's so funny. I can deeply relate to your story about your mom. My mom, I like to call her my research assistant at this point, because she loves to look things up, and so if I mention something, she'll just be all over it. So as soon as I realize that, then now I'm like, "Hey, mom, what do you think about this?" And she'll come
She'll
back
go.
with all this research for me. But, she called me one day not very long ago, and she's like, "Do you know anything about trauma?" And she's all into learning about trauma, and she's like, "Do you know this? Do you know this?" I'm like, Yes, thank you." It's a good reminder, but it's just so funny. This is what she's thinking about now and learning about, and I'm like,
Oh, I love it.
"Welcome to the
And
path, mom."
And isn't it beautiful? And it's very similar things too, because my mom is now starting to learn about relationships and self-love and self-acceptance, and like these things, and it's like I'm so proud of her.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
so proud of her, and it's like, and I can feel it, impacting past generations too. Not just my mom, but my grandma, my great grandma, and all the way through where these stories have started.
Right.
And I can't share like all of it on the podcast because some of it's very deeply and very precious personal experiences, but I know for a fact, like, when you heal trauma, you know, heaven celebrates.
Right.
It really does.
I've had those experiences too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it really does. Oh, so good stuff. Oh, like one of my favorite podcasts. I'm telling you this. She's gonna be back, you guys. We're definitely gonna have Tara back. This is so much fun. Okay, so we're talking about like movement. We've talked about EFT. I also love essential oils.
Yeah, I do
You
too.
know, yeah, yeah, and I have a bunch on my desk and everywhere
Mhm.
else in my house actually.
Mhm.
But I love them because, one of the things that I have learned is each one of the oils actually has a different emotional response. And the reason why is because your olfactory nerve and your olfactory bulb is right there next to your emotion and your trauma center, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Right? It's right there. And so, whatever we're smelling
Mhm.
does make a difference. It starts to calm the mind and shift the mind. Um, you know, I I'm totally a doTERRA nerd. I love doTERRA oils.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite to use in any type of like generational trauma
Mhm.
healing is like any one of the fur oils because they're so grounded and they
Mhm.
just kind of help bring you back down to earth and
Mm.
help like they are one of my favorites in calming the
Mm.
nervous system. You know what
Mm.
I mean?
Mhm. I love cedarwood.
Yeah, cedarwood or balance or uh it used to be white fur, it's Siberian fur now, is actually the
Mhm.
generational healer,
Mm.
you
Awesome.
know? And so it's like there's so many things. I love essential oils, using essential oils along with meditation. You know what? Like we've got some major tools here to try to start healing that nervous system. But one of the things that I really think that all of these take is the ability to be present enough with yourself to say, I need to carve out some time to do these.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
um, one thing I see a lot of people doing when they have struggles in their nervous system is they totally forget themselves. And this is one of the most like, you know, I say this that, you've got your fight, your flight, your freeze, and your fawn response. And I say the most dangerous is the fawn
Yeah.
because
For a
when
couple
you're,
of reasons.
yeah, for a couple of reasons. Like if you're pushing yourself, if you're people pleasing, that's a way to hide yourself.
Right.
But the thing is you end up hiding yourself so deeply that you can't find yourself.
Right.
And these are the types of people that really, really struggle to carve out time
Mm.
for themselves
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
do these practices. So, what do you suggest?
Well, recognizing it, like awareness is the very first step, right? Awareness,
Right.
like, and so I like to tell people, I was telling the client yesterday, I call myself a people pleaser in recovery, a recovering people pleaser, because I did that for so many years
Yeah, I did
until the
too.
day that I realized that it was more self-serving than I thought. Because I told myself I was doing it to help, to do the things I thought you needed. I wasn't asking you what you needed, but I was just assuming and jumping in and trying to be all the things to all the people. And the day that I realized that it was because I was uncomfortable, and so I was trying to make you more comfortable so I could be comfortable, and it was actually
Mhm.
more self-serving than I thought. It's actually one of the most self-serving, things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But as soon as you can see that piece, and I know I have a lot of pushback because people are like, "Oh, no, I love to help. I love to serve. I love to do this thing." I'm like, "Yes, and you can't serve from an empty vessel."
Nope.
So I had a client who she said, I just had this thing come to me yesterday and I want to share like this object lesson that I gave my daughter. And I was like, okay, great. So she said to me, why are you leaving this weekend? Why are you going away to spend time with your friend? You must not love me. And I don't think you're ever coming back. And I'm worried. She's just a little one and I'm worried that you're never coming back. And she said, grab that cup. So she had this big cup and then she had 4 little ones because she has 4 little ones. And she said, I'm going to pour my water into your cup, so that you each have some. And she said, now mine's gone. So I'm going to fill it up again. And then when I come back, then I can make sure that yours are all full. But it takes more than one trip. And she said, this is how I fill my cup so that I have in there to give to you because we can't serve from an empty cup. And so when I know that I get to take time, the more time I get to spend taking care of me, the more energy I have to take care of you. Then
Mhm.
it's this beautiful figure eight again, right? That we go,
Mhm.
it's a cycle. But if I don't do that, if I don't take that time to check in with my emotions and figure out how I feel about things, to recognize what's going on in my body, to see if I'm activated in my nervous system, then I can spin out and we end up in compassion fatigue and burnout
Yeah.
because we haven't filled our cup again.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I think I might have to use that
I know.
analogy. Like that was
I know.
so good. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
But, this is amazing to note because it's so true, you
Mhm.
know? If we don't take the time for ourselves, we do end up in burnout. We do end up in overwhelm. We do end up in what I call the adversaries, the seven adversaries. You've got the seven pillars versus the seven adversaries. And I talk a little bit about that in the podcast. But overwhelm
Mhm.
and burnout,
Mhm.
that's the opposite of play,
Right.
right? And if you're not playing enough,
Right.
no, you're absolutely not able to give.
Right.
And the thing is you're totally right. It's actually a way of manipulation,
Mhm.
right? Like fight, yeah, yeah, nobody's gonna come out of the fight looking quite pretty. I do think. Um, but it doesn't quite last as long as fawn.
Mm.
You get into the freeze, same thing. It doesn't quite last as long.
For some.
Where for some,
Mhm.
right? That's true.
Yeah.
Um, the flight, same thing. But when you get into that fawn, this is the one thing, like people, the brain, it's not anybody's fault. Like we're not blaming anybody because your brain does like crazy things
Right.
to keep you safe,
Right.
right? And so it learns, well, if I hide myself and I extremely people please and I just serve, 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 and I just leave myself off to the side and I don't stand up for myself and I don't have a voice and I
Mhm.
don't have those things, then I'm finally safe,
Right.
right? But the problem is that's actually not addressing the problem.
Yeah.
It's never going to address that problem, right? We're not talking about it, we're hiding from it, and we literally become a servant to the person or people that tend to hurt us the most because we think that's all the world is,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and we think if we just do this one more thing, maybe they'll stop and we won't hurt so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually a type of control. And that was you're talking about like another one of the first lessons that God taught me was how I was actually in a cycle of control and I didn't realize it. And once I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so totally what I'm doing, right? And it's such a very subtle way to
It's very subtle.
manipulate. It's a very subtle way to manipulate and a subtle way to try to control. But the reason why you're doing it is so you can control how somebody else reacts, somebody else thinks, somebody else lives,
Which is so funny because when you say it out loud, you're like, but control's an illusion and I can't actually control you.
right? But man, do we sure try.
Oh, yes.
Man, do we ever try.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like, just from my personal experience, and I'd love to hear yours, that I think that the people that have the two I see the most with people who have a very, very stuck nervous system is definitely the fawn
Mhm.
or the fight. And I
Mhm.
think it's because once people realize that the fawn isn't working, well, then they come out swinging,
Mhm.
and so they kind of vacillate sometimes between the two.
Mhm. Yeah. I I think they kind of I would say they spin in all of them, but yeah, for sure. Those are probably the 2 most popular.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting.
But,
So
we could do a whole other podcast about this, but I see all of those as just survivor strategies,
it is.
right? I come up
Yeah,
like, "This is my survivor strategy. I'm gonna fight my way out of it so that you can't hurt me anymore.
yeah,
Protect my wound," right? Or I'm gonna
yeah,
please my way out of it so that or I'm just gonna ignore it and pretend like it doesn't happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, we totally could do a whole other podcast about that. Yes, we could. We totally could. And one of the things too that I also want to really mention to you, my beautiful listeners, is it's not your fault. Like nobody's blaming you, nobody's judging you. Well, if they are, it's not us. But like we're not blaming you, we're not judging you. Like it's just really good to, like Tara was saying, to be aware of what's going on. And so if you're finding yourself, stuck in, you know, your
Mhm,
nervous system and knowing that you need to heal that nervous system, get out and walk,
mhm,
start shaking it off.
mhm,
Shake it off, shake it off.
mhm.
Right? Do the whole Taylor Swift thing.
For sure.
Shake it off. Um, do some meditation, EFT, get into those scriptures.
Mhm,
Like there's some beautiful, beautiful things in the scriptures, you know, uh, that can teach you about trauma and how to heal it.
mhm,
Um, and really build up all four of these pieces: your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical.
mhm.
And you'll start noticing a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Tara, thank you so much for being here. Wow, like such a good podcast. I'm so excited to go and like just shake. Like I want to shake right now. Like I really do. And get that figure eight going because, there's just so much yummy energy from that
Yeah, I
and
love
from this podcast.
Mhm.
Yes. Good
Yeah.
stuff. We will definitely have Tara back. Where do people find you if they want to come talk to you?
Um, you can find me on shayleehope.com. There's a lot of free resources there. I also teach classes. I teach a class called Facilitating Emotional Literacy to teach coaches how to because it's a piece that's missing out of a lot of coaching programs. So I have that one,
Mm,
just how to help your clients through their emotional stuff and see the different patterns that they have. So it's a 6 week or, it has 6 lessons. And then, yeah, I also teach, certification, 1 year long certification course, which is a lot of group coaching, a lot of practicing so that you're not just left out in the cold after 3 days to say good luck, right? It's like all the things you need, all the ethics, all the formats, all the paperwork that you need, everything in one place. So yeah, you can
wow.
find shayolehope.com. Will you put a link in the notes?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I work a lot with both Tara and Bronwyn, who are the heads of Shaley Hope, and so
Yeah,
I can tell you it's a great place, and I love both of them. You're in good hands when you talk to them too.
me
So
too. You're a good success story for us. We love it.
yes,
And do what we
I
say
love it
and not
too.
teach. Yeah, yeah, it's good. It's
Yeah.
amazing to see. It's fun,
Thank you.
isn't it?
Yeah. My gosh, it's so much fun. I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
awesome.
All right. Thanks, you guys. We will see you on the other side. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's going to